The hidden design behind marriage. What if I told you marriage was never just a chapter in your life story? It is the story, not a decision you make, but a divine calling written in the fibers of your soul, long before you ever understood what love even meant. Because maybe, just maybe, that ache in your chest, that whisper in your spirit, that vision of someone who feels like home, it didn't come from your mind. It came from your creator. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." But what if your unconscious has been carrying something sacred, something not of this world, a signal, a memory, a divine assignment, not just to find love, but to become love? Because here's the truth. Most people never realize. Marriage is not a goal. Marriage is a mirror. A mirror sent by God to reflect back the parts of you that still need healing. The wounds you covered with strength. The fears you buried under independence. The softness you were told to harden. You don't attract who you want. You attract who you're ready for. And sometimes the delay isn't denial. It's divine preparation. God isn't punishing you with loneliness. He's protecting you from a bond that would have broken you. Because when the right soul arrives, it won't feel like fireworks. It'll feel like familiarity, like you've met before in dreams, in prayers, in places too sacred for language, and your soul will finally sigh, "You're here." So the question is no longer if marriage is coming. It is. The question is, will you be the version of you God intended to receive it? Because love, this sacred, doesn't arrive for the one who begs. It arrives for the one who becomes. Chapter 1. The Sacred Blueprint. Long before dating apps, wedding hashtags, or cultural expectations, there was Genesis. It is not good for man to be alone. Genesis 2:18. That verse wasn't just poetry. It was the origin of intimacy, the blueprint of human connection encoded not in paper, but in soul. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, believed that the oldest truths are hidden in symbols. And what is marriage if not the ultimate symbol? The sacred dance of masculine and feminine, of chaos and order, of logic and emotion, of yang and yin. Not just two people living together, but two archetypes merging to form something divine. This is why the yearning for marriage isn't just emotional. It's primordial. It's not a modern craving. It's spiritual memory, a pull from something ancient, something sacred that still echoes in your bones. Because marriage wasn't invented by man. It was revealed by God. It wasn't born out of loneliness. It was birthed from divine intention. And when God formed Eve from Adam's rib, he didn't create a partner. He crafted a reflection, a mirror to the inner self, to the parts he hadn't yet met, to the wholeness he couldn't reach alone. Marriage is not about perfection. It's not about finding someone who checks every box. It's about finding the one who helps you become the person you were destined to be. Because when God writes the story, he doesn't just bring you a spouse, he brings you a spiritual assignment. Someone who doesn't just hold your hand, but holds your soul accountable. Someone who sees the divine in you even when you can't see it in yourself. That's why no matter how long it's been, no matter how many heartbreaks you've had, you still believe. Because it was written into your soul before the world ever taught you what romance was. It's not delusion. It's design. So if you're still longing, still praying, still hoping for a love that feels like purpose, it's because that sacred blueprint inside you is still unfolding. And marriage, when it's aligned with God, is not the end of your story. It's the chapter where you finally meet your reflection and begin again as one. Chapter 2, Signs from God and the Unconscious. Have you ever met someone and suddenly felt like you've known them before? Not in this life, but in some ancient realm, a connection so unexplainable, so peaceful, it scares you. It's not loud. It doesn't feel like fireworks or butterflies. It feels like stillness, like you've just come home from a long, exhausting war. And finally, there's quiet. This isn't fantasy. This is divine recognition. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious mind is constantly trying to complete us, not through logic, but through symbols, synchronicities, and attraction. The people you're drawn to without understanding why are often mirrors reflecting back the parts of you that still long to be seen, understood, and healed. And the timing that's not coincidence. That's God's strategy. The Spirit Himself testifies with our spirit that we are children of God. Romans 8:16. You see, God doesn't always speak through noise. Sometimes He speaks through nudges, through peaceful tension, through dreams that linger even after you wake up, through a message you weren't searching for but found anyway, through someone's voice that calms your soul more than your favorite prayer playlist ever could. And you know what's even wilder? You've felt this before, long before they came. That deep pull, that mysterious ache, that unshakable feeling that someone real, someone meant, is on their way, because the blueprint was already inside you. Before you ever locked eyes, before you ever exchanged names, your soul was preparing for this moment. And when that person enters your life, they don't bring chaos. They bring clarity. Bring, not because they're perfect, not because it's fairy tale flawless, but because your soul recognizes them in a way your mind can't comprehend. Carl Jung once wrote, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life." But sometimes we meet a person and it's not just us we encounter through them. We meet the version of ourselves we had buried, the version we were always meant to become, the one that's been waiting for the right soul to unlock it. And that's why the encounter hits different. That's why you feel peace and panic all at once. That's why your logic says this is too fast, but your heart says, I've been waiting my whole life. Because maybe you have. So listen closely. When God sends a sign, it rarely comes with thunder. It comes with synchronicity. It comes with confirmation layered in peace. It comes when your anxious mind finally quiets and your soul speaks up and says, this is it. That stillness, that calm in the storm, that undeniable feeling that you're safe with them. Not just physically, but spiritually. That is not infatuation. That is recognition. That is alignment. That is God's fingerprint. And if you've been asking for a sign, this is it. So don't run from the peace. Don't doubt what feels divinely familiar, because some people aren't sent to excite you. They're sent to awaken you. And maybe, just maybe, marriage is not where the journey ends. It's where the real you begins. Chapter 3. God uses the wait to prepare you. Silence is scary, especially when your heart is praying and heaven feels quiet. But listen carefully. God is never absent. He's just working in dimensions you can't see yet. Sometimes He answers with miracles, sometimes with mystery. Because what you call delay, God calls design. He's not just preparing someone for you, He's preparing you for someone sacred. Marriage isn't the finish line, it's a resurrection. The death of your ego, the rebirth of your soul. Because real love, the kind that lasts, doesn't arrive until the old version of you has been stripped clean. And that process, it's not romantic. It's refining. Let perseverance finish its work so you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. James 1:4. You see, love that's built on ego collapses, but love that's born in fire stays. So if you're in a season of loneliness, of closed doors, unanswered prayers, don't panic. You're not forgotten. You're being forged. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the sacred, often painful journey of becoming who you were always meant to be. It's when God pulls you into the wilderness, not to destroy you, but to detox you from attachments, from idols, from false versions of love that were never worthy of your soul. This is where He teaches you to love without fear, to forgive without clinging to pride, to serve without losing your identity. Because if He gave you the promise too soon, you'd mishandle it. You'd pour from an empty cup. You'd worship the person instead of honoring the purpose. You'd bleed on the one sent to heal you. So He waits not to punish you, but to prepare you. Every delay is a classroom. Every heartbreak is a hammer shaping your soul. You're not missing out. You're being made whole. And when you finally meet the one he's preparing for you, you won't bring broken expectations or half-healed wounds. You'll bring clarity. You'll bring peace. You'll bring a version of yourself that no longer begs but builds. Because marriage is not just about companionship, it's about capacity. And right now in this silence, God is stretching yours. So the next time you feel like giving up, remember you're not being punished. You're being positioned. Because the kind of love God gives can't be rushed. It must be revealed. And when it is, you'll understand why the wait was never a waste. Chapter 4. When God says no, he's saying not them. Sometimes God's loudest answer is a closed door. Not because you weren't good enough, not because you didn't love hard enough, but because they weren't your destiny. See, we often look for God's confirmation in who shows up. But what if the real sign us is who leaves that person you kept praying for? That almost relationship that gave you hope and heartbreak in the same breath. That one-sided love you tried so hard to earn. They weren't the one, and God knew that. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." And many of us resist letting go. We cling to people who feel familiar, not realizing that familiarity isn't always faithfulness. Sometimes it's just unhealed trauma dressed up as chemistry. That relationship that drained you, that person who breadcrumbed your worth, that connection that made you question your value every night. God allowed it, but only to awaken you, to show you what love is not. So when the real thing comes, your soul will know. You prayed for love. God gave you loss because you needed clarity first. You asked for a partner. God gave you emptiness, and so you'd stop begging for crumbs. Because God doesn't just protect your future, He protects your identity. And every time you cried over someone He removed, He was rewriting your worth. So when they leave, don't chase. Don't spiral. Don't see it as failure. See it as sacred subtraction. Because when God says no, He's not withholding love. He's making room for it. He's saying, not them, not that story, not this time. You deserve more. That closed door, it's not a curse, it's a compass. That rejection, it wasn't abandonment, it was alignment. Because what's holy can't begin until what's hollow is removed. And what's sacred won't settle where your soul still clings to what's safe. So let them walk. Let the fantasy die. Let the false promises dissolve. Because the real thing, the God-written love, will not confuse you, will not drain you, will not leave you wondering if you're enough. It will come gentle. It will come clear. It will come with peace that doesn't beg for proof. And until then, trust the no. Because it's not just rejection, it's redirection to resurrection. God isn't removing people to hurt you. He's clearing the stage for the one who won't just hold your hand, or they'll hold your purpose. Chapter 5. Divine alignment, not just affection. It's easy to fall in love with someone's presence. But divine relationships are about something deeper. Falling in love with someone's purpose. In a world obsessed with surface attraction, emotional chemistry, aesthetic compatibility, God is asking a higher question. Can two walk together unless they agree? Amos 3:3. Because love without alignment is emotional chaos wrapped in spiritual confusion. Affection can spark attraction, can blind, but only alignment can build. Carl Jung called this rare connection the union of two individuated selves. Not trauma bonding, not codependence masked as devotion, not two broken souls clinging to each other like life rafts in a storm, but two whole beings who've done the inner work, who faced their shadows, who've met their demons and chosen the light. Two sovereign souls who say, I don't need you to complete me, I choose you to co-create with me. This is divine alignment. It's not about butterflies, it's about blueprints. It's when your mission and their mission don't just coexist. They amplify each other. You pray deeper, you grow faster, you heal cleaner. You step into rooms you were afraid of because they walk beside you. That's not luck. That's spiritual architecture. Because God doesn't send lovers. He sends builders. Someone who doesn't just hold your hand but holds your calling with reverence. Someone who doesn't pull you off your path but sharpens your focus on it. Someone who knows we're not here just to fall in love. We're here to move heaven's agenda together. This is what makes purpose partnerships different. It's not just about how you feel around them. It's about who you become because of them. Do they trigger your wounds, or do they stretch your faith? Do they mirror your trauma, or echo your mission? Because when God sends alignment, it won't just make you feel safe. It will make you feel summoned. Summoned to more, to stretch, to rise, to become the version of you that heaven had in mind all along. And together, you don't just create love, and you create legacy. So, stop asking. Now, do they make me happy? Start asking. Do they make me holy? Do they make me sharper? Do they walk beside my calling with sacred hands? Because romance fades. But purpose shakes nations. When your love story is aligned with heaven's will, it doesn't just bless your heart. It blesses generations. This is not chemistry. This is not infatuation. This is confirmation. And when you find that, hold it, protect it, walk boldly into it. Because God doesn't just send you someone to fall asleep next to. He sends you someone to wake your soul up. Chapter 6. When the soul is ready, the person appears. Some people pray for love, some chase it, some beg for it. But the soul doesn't do any of that. The soul waits because it knows what is meant cannot miss. Carl Jung believed that the soul doesn't attract what's easy. It attracts what it needs. And what you need may not always feel soft. It may come as silence. It may come as separation. It may even come wrapped in heartbreak. So devastating. It cracks your identity open. But that crack, that's how the light gets in. You see, the heartbreak didn't break you. It broke the illusion. The illusion that you had to earn love. The illusion that you weren't worthy without someone beside you. The illusion that timelines and pressure matter more than alignment. So maybe the delay wasn't punishment. It was protection. Maybe that ghosted conversation, that rejection you still replay in your mind, that tear-soaked prayer you whispered at 2:00 a.m., they were all necessary contractions before a sacred birth. Because marriage isn't just a celebration, it's a calling. And the person you're waiting for, they're not being delayed. They're being refined, just like you. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. That's why God doesn't rush it. Because when your souls finally collide, it's not supposed to just feel good. It's supposed to transform you. You're not preparing for ordinary. You're preparing for divine union. So if you feel like you've been in the shadows, if you've been healing, breaking, growing, doubting, know this. That's not the end of your story. That's the soil. And the seeds God planted in that dark season, they're growing silently and fiercely faithfully, because when the soul is ready, the person appears. Not just anyone. Not the one who played with your worth. Not the one who couldn't hold your emotions. Not the one who loved your light, but ran from your wounds. The right one. The one who doesn't complete you, but complements you. The one who sees all of you and doesn't flinch. The one whose presence doesn't trigger old fears, but awakens new purpose. Because when God writes your story, it won't be a repeat. It will be a revelation. It won't just make you feel safe. It will make you feel seen. So if you're still waiting, still wondering, still healing, you're not falling behind. You're falling into alignment. And the very moment you stop chasing timelines, stop asking when, and start trusting who, that's when it happens. Love doesn't knock early. It arrives when your soul opens the door. Chapter 7. The battle within fear of losing yourself. Most people say they fear rejection, abandonment, heartbreak. But if you listen closely beneath the surface, you'll realize the real fear is this. What if I lose myself in love? Because we've seen it. We've lived it. People who once sparkled shrink. People who once dreamed disappear into someone else's story. And somewhere along the line, love stops being a connection. It becomes a sacrifice of identity. Carl Jung warned us of this quiet tragedy. The greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents. How many of us are still carrying the weight of a mother who gave too much, or a father who silenced his dreams? How many people confuse love with losing themselves for someone else? That's why before God brings the person, He often brings the mirror to ask you, who are you? When no one's watching, who are you? And without performance, without validation, without fear, who are you? Outside of the roles you've been taught to play. Because if you don't know, love will feel like a threat. You'll either shrink to stay liked or dominate to feel safe. And that's not love. That's ego in disguise. God isn't looking for two half people to desperately cling to each other. He's looking for two whole souls. People who've done the inner excavation, who've wrestled their shadows, who've faced the fear of loneliness and found purpose in solitude. Because real love doesn't complete you. It complements you. But here's the catch. If you don't do the inner work, if you haven't healed the wounds of childhood, the abandonment, the perfectionism, the fear of not being enough, you will bleed all over your blessing. You'll mistake safety for boredom, kindness for weakness. You'll sabotage peace just because it feels unfamiliar. That's why God slows it down. He delays the love you crave so He can prepare the self you abandoned. He makes sure you're not entering marriage as a broken mirror, because broken mirrors only reflect pieces. They distort. They cut the ones trying to love them. So before you ask for the one, become the one who doesn't vanish in love, the one who knows that love is not eraser, it's expansion. The right person won't ask you to shrink. They'll invite you to rise. They won't complete your life. They'll enhance the one you're already living. But that only happens when you heal. Heal the parts of you that think love is performance. Heal the belief that connection equals compromise of identity. Heal the survival pattern that tells you to disappear to be accepted. Because when love finally comes, it shouldn't find you as a project. It should find you as a partner. Someone who isn't begging to be seen, but who has already seen themselves. Someone who doesn't love out of fear, but out of freedom. Someone who knows I don't need to lose myself to love you. And I don't need to lose you to love myself. That's the kind of soul God blesses with divine union. That's the kind of spirit that won't bleed, but build. Chapter 8. Your triggers are your teachers. Let's be honest. Some of the deepest pain in your life didn't come from enemies. It came from the ones you love the most. That one relationship that shattered you, that argument that left your chest hollow, that person you bent your soul for and they still walked away. And you wonder, why would God allow that? Here's the answer. Because God doesn't waste pain. He recycles it. He refines you through it. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, gave us this chilling truth. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. In other words, the people who trigger you, they're not always problems. They're often professors. Your triggers aren't interruptions to your journey. They are the journey. Because before God sends you the person meant to love you, He will show you every place inside you that still doesn't love yourself. He'll surface your jealousy, your pride, your emotional reactivity, your fear of abandonment, your craving for validation. And instead of punishing you for it, He gives you mirrors. Yes, mirrors that come in the form of people who make you feel too much, say too little, or leave just when you thought they'd stay. But those people, as painful as they were part of your training. Because marriage isn't a fantasy. It's a battlefield for the soul. And the enemy inside you, unhealed wounds, ego attachment, childhood scars, has to be confronted before you can commit without bleeding. That's why God sends the triggers first, to teach you what still needs attention before someone calls you mine. Because the right person won't fix your insecurities. They'll expose them. And if you haven't met your triggers with healing, you'll project your past onto your future. You'll confuse love with control, silence with rejection, distance with abandonment, and you'll destroy what was sent to heal you. So if right now your life feels like a wave of emotional challenges, if you're being confronted with old wounds, patterns, emotional landmines, don't run, don't numb, don't scroll past it. Because that discomfort, that's your lesson. That irritation in your relationship, it's showing you where you lack communication skills. That anger you felt when they didn't text back. It's highlighting your fear of being ignored like you were as a child. That ache when they moved on. It's revealing where your identity was still tied to someone else's approval. This is the curriculum of healing. This is God saying, I love you too much to let your brokenness ruin your blessing. So don't resent the people who triggered you. Thank them because in breaking you, they revealed you. They helped uncover the version of you that was hiding under years of pretending. And that's what marriage needs. Not perfection, but awareness. Two people who face their pain, befriended their shadows, and no longer run from the mirror. Because when God finally sends that divine partner, it won't be the end of your growth. It'll be the beginning of conscious love. A love that knows, I'm not perfect, but I've met myself. So now I can meet you. Chapter 9. Marriage isn't the goal. Transformation is. Let's be real. You think you want marriage, but what if God is actually trying to mature you? You think you want a partner. But what if the real gift is purpose? You crave a love that stays. God craves a you that grows because while you're looking for a hand to hold, He's trying to hand you a mirror. Carl Jung believed in the sacred union of opposites, masculine and feminine, ego and soul, light and shadow. And marriage isn't just a relationship. It's a spiritual laboratory, a place where every unresolved part of you will rise to the surface, not to destroy you, but to transform you. You see, most people think the goal is to get married. The goal isn't marriage. The goal is maturity. The goal is to become the kind of person who can hold love without control, serve without losing self, connect without collapsing identity. Because love is not easy. It is sacred warfare. And if you enter it just to avoid loneliness, you'll mistake trauma bonding for twin flame and emotional dependency for divine union. Carl Jung taught, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Marriage is that chemical reaction, not to give you comfort, but to trigger your evolution to press on. Every wound, still open to ask every version of you, are you ready to become something higher? That's why some people never experience real union. They were too focused on the wedding to prepare for the work. So if you find yourself obsessing over, when will they come? Why haven't I found them yet? Where is my person? Take a breath and listen to the whisper beneath all your noise, because God may be gently asking. First, will you become the one who can carry what you're crying out for? You want a love that's deep, but are you emotionally available? You want someone loyal, but are you still loyal to your old wounds? You want holy love, but are you still entertaining habits that keep you unwhole? God isn't withholding the person. He's preparing the vessel because He doesn't just give gifts. He gives assignments. Marriage isn't a reward for loneliness. It's a responsibility for maturity, a divine structure that will either reveal your healing or your avoidance. So before you ask God for the one, ask Him to make you the one. Because the truth is, the real love of your life isn't a person. It's the you who finally stepped into their calling. The version of you that stopped chasing validation and started chasing wholeness. That's when it happens. That's when alignment flows. That's when the person appears and doesn't complete you, but matches the level of your transformation. Chapter 10. Dreams, visions, divine symbols. Who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside awakens. Kyung. Let me ask you something. Have you been feeling followed not by a person, but by a presence? A name that keeps showing up. A number that feels too specific. A dream that won't go away. A verse that jumps out of a random scroll, a moment that feels like déjà vu but deeper. That's not coincidence. That's not your mind playing tricks. That's divine pattern recognition. God doesn't just speak through sermons or scripture. He speaks through symbols, through visions, through the language of your unconscious, the part of you that still remembers heaven. Carl Jung spent his life decoding the symbols of the human soul. He believed your dreams are not just subconscious nonsense. They are messages wrapped in metaphor, soaked in mystery. And the most powerful messages come when your logic is asleep and your soul is finally listening. In the Bible, when Joseph was unsure about Mary, when confusion filled his mind and logic screamed to walk away, God didn't shout. He whispered in a dream, a vision sacred, symbolic, specific. And that dream became confirmation. Because here's the truth. The soul speaks first. The mind follows later. If you've been seeing repeating signs, if a name keeps circling your life like a sacred echo, if a dream keeps returning with deeper clarity every time, and don't dismiss it. Heaven is speaking. And not all divine communication comes with thunder. Some of it comes in the stillness, in a quiet knowing you can't explain, in an inner peace that drowns out all fear, even when the world says it makes no sense. This is the language of God. And your unconscious, the deepest part of you, understands it fluently. You might wake up from a dream with tears in your eyes or feel a chill when someone speaks a sentence that feels too perfect to be random, or sense your heart lean in when a certain verse hits like it was written just for you. That's not emotionalism. That's divine alignment. You see, God doesn't always answer with open doors. Sometimes he answers with symbols you have to pay attention to, a name in a song lyric, a verse in your feed, a feeling you can't shake, a dream that comes back for the third time, but this time you actually feel it. Don't ignore it. Your mind will doubt it, but your soul knows. And if you've been praying for confirmation, this is it. Not because I said it, but because you already knew. Before you clicked play, before you asked, before you begged God for a sign, he was already showing you. Now he's just whispering. Believe what I've been showing you. So write that dream down. Revisit that feeling. Honor that inner whisper. Because the divine doesn't always come with lightning. Sometimes it comes with light within. Chapter 11. The shadow work before the sacred union. Until you integrate the shadow, it will sabotage your relationships. Carl Jung. Before the sacred union, before the wedding vows, before the soulmate moment that makes the stars feel close, God will take you somewhere most people avoid. The mirror, not the one that shows your face, the one that shows your shadow, your pride, your defensiveness, your silent rage, your unspoken fear of being abandoned. Again, this is not punishment. It's preparation. Because you cannot build a kingdom marriage on a cracked foundation. You can dress it up in romance. You can post couple goals. But if the root system beneath your love is infected with unhealed childhood wounds, resentment, codependency, or ego, it will collapse. Carl Jung, the father of the shadow, taught us that unless we bring the unconscious into the light, it will rule our lives, and we will call it destiny. And nowhere is this truer than in relationships. You want love, but what part of you still fears being seen? You want deep connection, but are you still filtering your truth just to feel accepted? You want a holy marriage, but have you done the inner exorcism of false beliefs like, I'm too much, I'll be left like they left me? Love always means pain. Here's the truth. God will not bless who you pretend to be. He will bless the you that's brave enough to look in the mirror and say, I see my shadow and I'm ready to make peace with it. Because your future spouse doesn't need your defense mechanisms. They don't need your passive-aggressive silence. They don't need your disguised control or over-functioning to feel worthy. They need your wisdom. Wisdom born from the fire. The kind that says, I know my wounds, but I don't lead with them anymore. I can feel triggered, but I don't act out of it blindly. I'm not perfect, but I'm aware. Because awareness is the foundation of emotional safety, and love cannot thrive where truth is hiding. So God brings up the shadow not to shame you, but to liberate you, to break generational cycles before they repeat in your home. to confront the parts of you that still believe love must be earned through pain, to show you that you don't have to hide your most tender parts anymore. Because when you finally love the parts of yourself the world taught you to fear, you will attract someone who's not afraid to see you completely. No mask, no armor, no performance, just the real you healed, whole, held. This is the true preparation for divine union. Not surface perfection, but soul integration. And once that work is done, you don't just find your person. You meet them as your highest self. And that kind of union isn't just holy, it's unbreakable. Chapter 12. The final test before union. Right before the breakthrough comes the breakdown. Before the blessing comes the betrayal. And before the sacred union comes the final test. This test doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to reveal you, to burn off what's not really you and expose who you've become. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And what is love if not the most sacred mirror? And what is the soul's final preparation if not fire disguised as silence? If you're feeling forgotten right now, left behind, overlooked, like everyone else is finding their person and you're still stuck healing from the last one, this is not abandonment. It's alignment. Because right before God sends the one he often removes every illusion you still held on to. The illusion of control. The illusion of timing. The illusion that love must look like the last one. This is your final test. Can you stay surrendered even when your heart wants to chase? Can you stay soft even when life feels unfair? Because here's what nobody tells you. Your divine partner is not delayed. They're being delivered to the version of you that didn't give up in the waiting, that didn't numb the ache with distractions, that didn't collapse into bitterness or harden into ego. Because anyone can love when it's easy, but only the healed can love when it's divine. God is not just building a marriage. He's building a movement through two healed people who don't just want romance. They want legacy. They don't just crave chemistry. They crave calling. And so the test deepens. It'll ask you to face your loneliest night and still believe in sacred mornings. It'll confront your deepest triggers and watch if you respond with trauma or truth. Because here's the truth that Carl Jung always pointed to. Your shadow holds the final key. And union won't work if you're still hiding from your own soul. So God will allow the final trigger, a ghost from your past, an ex who suddenly reappears, a new person who feels like the one but comes with confusion. This isn't the blessing, it's the test. Not every beautiful connection is meant to stay. Some are sent to see. Have you finally learned the lesson? Have you truly healed? Will you still abandon yourself just to be chosen? Or will you wait for the one who chooses you without negotiation? Because the one God sends won't come to test your worth. They'll come to match your transformation. And until then, the final test will echo. It'll feel lonely. It'll feel personal. It'll feel like silence from heaven. But silence is never the absence of God. It's the sharpening of your soul. So hold on. Don't flinch. Don't settle. Don't trade your legacy for momentary attention. You are not being punished. You are being purified. Because when that divine partner arrives, they won't need to fix you. They'll recognize you. You'll look into their eyes and see your growth reflected back. Not perfect, but prepared. Not rushed, but revealed. Not fantasy, but fulfillment. And that kind of love doesn't just heal you. It honors everything you became in the fire. And when you walk down that aisle, you won't just be getting married. You'll be stepping into your divine destiny. Chapter 13. You don't find them, you become ready for them. Here's the truth no one tells you. You don't find your person, you become ready for them. Because divine love is not a prize you chase. It's a frequency you rise into. Carl Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." And love, real love, awakens you not with comfort, but with confrontation. It doesn't just give you butterflies. It brings you face to face with the version of you you've been running from. That's why God doesn't rush it, because the person you want is praying for someone emotionally mature, spiritually aware, grounded in truth. And if you're still becoming that person, God protects you both by keeping you apart. You won't meet them until you meet yourself. Not the filtered version, not the masked achiever, but the raw, unhealed, holy, in-progress soul. That's when the shift begins. Not outside, but within. Because when your soul rises into alignment, when your trauma stops running the show, when your shadow becomes your teacher, you stop attracting lessons and start attracting alignment. And suddenly that person arrives not because you begged God, but because you became the version of you who could finally receive what you've been begging for. You stopped searching and started becoming. You stopped clinging and started clearing. And when they come, it won't feel like fireworks. It'll feel like remembering. Like there you are. I've met you before in my healing, in my prayers, in my surrender. That's divine love. It doesn't knock when you're desperate. It shows up when you're ready. And that readiness that isn't built on surface work. It's built in the quiet. In the nights where you chose peace over drama. In the mornings where you journaled instead of begging for attention. In the moments you held your own heart through tears and didn't reach for temporary comfort. That's the work. And the person you're waiting for, they're doing the same right now. Somewhere across time and space, your soulmate is facing their shadow, healing their patterns, surrendering old cycles. Because the real love story is not about two perfect people finding each other. It's about two healed souls, aligned in spirit, meeting each other at their highest frequency. And when that happens, it doesn't just feel good. It feels divine. Because now you don't need them to complete you. You just choose them to co-create with you. You don't beg them to love you. You recognize the way they already do without performance, without conditions. And suddenly all the people who left make sense. All the delays feel sacred. All the tears become holy because they led you here to this version of you. The you who doesn't chase but attracts. The you who doesn't fake strength but embodies softness without shame. And that version of you is the one your soulmate has been waiting for. So stop asking, where are they? Start asking, am I becoming the version of me who's ready? Because love doesn't show up in timelines. It shows up in transformation. And when it does, you won't just find them. You'll find yourself. And in that sacred moment, it won't feel like a movie. It'll feel like destiny finally catching up with your soul. Because the truth is, you were never looking for them. You are becoming the one they were meant to meet all along. Chapter 14. The sacred masculine meets the healed feminine. What happens when a healed woman meets a sacred man? Not a savior, not a player, not a placeholder, but a man who's done the inner war, who's held his ego to the flame and came out with wisdom in his eyes. Carl Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." And when the sacred masculine meets the healed feminine, it's not just a relationship. It's a resurrection of wholeness, of purpose, of legacy. He doesn't chase her. He recognizes her. She doesn't beg him to stay. She magnetizes him with her peace. Because by the time they meet, she's no longer performing for love. She's become it. She's no longer auditioning for worth. She walks in it. And he no longer proves with power. He leads with presence. He holds her not because she's weak, but because her softness deserves protection, not punishment. This is what happens when divine polarity meets divine healing. No more games, no more trauma loops, no more chasing highs that leave your soul empty. Now there's reverence, there's rhythm, there's rest. Because the healed feminine knows she's a temple, not a test. And the sacred masculine treats her like one, not because he's trying to win her, but because he sees God in her. He doesn't dominate her. He dances with her. He doesn't shame her emotions. He listens through them. And she doesn't shrink around his strength. She softens into it because his strength feels safe. Not controlling, not performative but sacred, steady grounded. This is divine union, where leadership isn't about control, it's about care. Where submission isn't about silence, it's about sacred surrender without fear. Where her intuition isn't mocked, it's honored. Where his logic isn't belittled, it's trusted. They don't compete, they complete the mission. They don't idolize each other. They elevate each other together. They don't just build a life. They build altars, not for worship of each other, but for the God who wrote their story before they even met. This isn't relationship goals. It's divine architecture. Because when the sacred masculine meets the healed feminine, it shakes generational chains. It rebuilds what trauma tried to tear down. It raises children in homes where peace is normal, not rare. It raises standards in a world that celebrates dysfunction. And most importantly, it proves that love isn't dead. It's just been waiting for both of you to resurrect yourselves first. So if you're still healing, still growing, still learning how to trust again, don't rush the process. Your person isn't late. They're rising just like you. And when your frequencies align, heaven will say, now, because that kind of union, it's not given, it's granted. It's not random, it's revealed. And when it arrives, Kanju, you won't have to beg for it. You'll walk into it with peace, with presence, with power. Because the sacred masculine will see her not as a burden, but as a blessing. And the healed feminine will see him not as a threat, but as a throne. And together they won't just fall in love. They'll rise in it. And everything that came before will finally make divine sense. Chapter 15. Why it never worked before, and why it will. Now let's be real. You've loved before. You've tried. You've hoped. You gave your soul to people who only loved your light but flinched at your wounds. You bent. You broke. And still, you believed, but every love you thought would last didn't. And you blamed yourself. Maybe I'm too much. Maybe I'm hard to love. But Carl Jung taught us, you meet your destiny on the road you take to avoid it. What if those failed loves weren't failures? What if they were mirrors to show you what needed healing before the real thing could arrive? Because love isn't just about finding someone, it's about becoming someone. And in the past, you were still becoming. You were still people-pleasing, still hiding your truth to be liked, still calling chaos chemistry, still confusing attachment for connection, still bleeding on the ones sent to bless you. It didn't fail because you're broken. It failed because you weren't whole yet. Because love sent too soon isn't a blessing. It's a burden. And God in His mercy didn't let it stay. Not to punish you, but to protect your future. So now you see why it never worked. Because it wasn't supposed to. Because if it had, you would have stayed small. You would have settled. You would have built a life on your wounds and called it home. But now you've seen yourself. Now you've grieved the fantasy. Now you've reclaimed your power. Now you've honored your boundaries. Now you've learned how to stay soft without being silent. Now you don't beg to be chosen. You choose you. And that's why it will work now. Not because they're better, but because you are. Because you're no longer performing. You're no longer shrinking to be kept. You're no longer betraying your intuition to keep the peace. You're no longer calling pain passion. Now you speak with clarity. Now you lead with softness. Now you love with wisdom. Now you listen to your gut, not your fear. Carl Jung said, only the paradox comes anywhere near to comprehending the fullness of life. And now you understand that love can be strong and soft, that you can be healed and still healing, that you don't have to be perfect, just present. You don't attract love by proving you're worthy. You attract it by remembering you always were. And when the right person comes, you won't second-guess it because your nervous system will feel safe. Your soul will feel seen. Your heart will feel steady, not because they completed you but because you finally stopped abandoning yourself. And that is why it will last now, because the version of you who's ready to receive divine love is finally here. And they're not coming to fill your cup. They're coming to overflow with you. So breathe. Release the shame of every almost. Let go of the guilt for loving too deeply. Forgive yourself for not knowing, then what you know now. It never worked before because God was still working on you. But now you're not chasing love. You're carrying it. You're not waiting to be chosen. You've chosen yourself. And because of that, you won't just find love. You'll sustain it, protect it, and rise with it. Because this time it won't be based on fear. It'll be built on freedom. And that kind of love never fails. If this message felt too close to your truth, it's because it wasn't just content. It was a confirmation, a quiet echo from heaven, a whisper your soul has been waiting to hear. It's time to stop asking when will it happen and start preparing for what's about to happen. Marriage is coming, but not just any marriage. A God-written, soul-refining purpose, igniting legacy, anointing kind of union. The kind that doesn't just change your relationship status, it changes your spiritual posture. It doesn't just fill your heart, it activates your assignment. So if your spirit felt something shift today, if something in you said this was for me, then don't let this moment pass. Drop a comment below. I receive the confirmation. Not for attention, not for views, but for alignment. Because when you name your faith, heaven responds. And if someone you love is still in a season of silence, still wondering if God hears, still praying in the dark, share this with them. Let them know the delay is not a denial. It's a divine redesign. God doesn't give halfway love. He gives heaven-level preparation. So if he's still working on your heart, that means your miracle is closer than it looks. Don't run from the wait. Rise in it. Don't curse the silence. Listen to it. Because when the soul is ready, the person will appear. And when it's time, you won't have to chase it. You'll recognize it. Subscribe for more of Carl Jung's Forgotten Fire Psychology, Prophecy, and Soul Alignment, decoded in every episode, because the hidden Jung files are just getting started.